Let's rock. Let's get, you want to get the nice library vibes in the background, you know? I don't know where Rachel is, but it might be just me, you and
She
me.
can pop in the middle. It's fine. Yeah.
She can pop, pop in, pop in. So
Saying it's no joke.
it's no joke. So the metaphysical vibes. It's just so what's no joke? So the Kabbalists, I mean, I don't like to use terms like Kabbalist because immediately it brings up a connotation, but those who understand the spiritual or energetic rules, let's find language that's more accessible, energetic rules of the universe, right? So how energy moves in the universe and how cause and effect is influenced um, from forces that are beyond our control, right? So in the same way as the moon influences the tides, right? There are certain influences, energetic influences that happen in other dimensions on our person. Let's not unpack that too much. But as you were talking about yesterday, yesterday was the 9th of Av, so from the Jewish calendar, right? And I love to debate this stuff because it's obviously it brings up so many triggers for people. Everyone's like, no. But like yesterday was a very particular day, and it is by some wisdom teachings, it's seen as the most negative day of the year. One of the ways to overcome intense energy, and anything that's negative is equally positive because within the greatest darkness, we can reveal the most amount of light. That's the beauty of the shadow. It's actually where you want to go because that's the transformation. If we know how to work with that and expand through that, overcome our reactive nature, the egoic nature, it's gonna prop up. And there are times of the year when it's more charged, right? Because there's external forces that are giving it that additional oomph, right? And Leo, so we were in the 9th of Ab, which is the 9th of Leo, the 9th day of Leo, which is by I'm going to keep my background because it's got the vibey library behind. It makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about because I've read all these books. I haven't read all these books. So the 9th of Av is which was yesterday, 2 days ago. Yesterday, 2 days ago. 2 days. Yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yeah,
So I'm talking about yesterday. The 9th of Av, 9th day of Leo, is seen as the most negative day energetically because there's most intensity. And if you are not aware of that and you feel the energy, we react to it. We get overwhelmed. We kind of we go into the fight, and it's amazing the conflicts that have arisen around me with people I work with, like someone like I'm not gonna go into it, but like it's so wild to see, and it's very interesting to observe self. Usually, as a way of restricting, which means to break the physicality, we fast, dry fast. Was one way, and then we do meditations and certain blessings, which allow us to elevate. When we elevate out of the physical, what we're doing is really elevating from the egoic self, so it doesn't have so much control over us. It's very important if you can find ways to remove the influence of the ego, which is very powerful.
Mm.
Understanding the nature of ego is also important. So when you want to remove that, and when you remove it, you're actually getting energy because we lose energy to the ego. We lose energy in conflict, in aggression, in violence. We lose all this power. And that's when we restrict and transform that reactivity, which is what happens, into proactivity, which means holding back, transforming it, expanding, we actually create miracles and blessings. And that's the gift because we're like, well, what's the ultimate game? The ultimate end game is that we're living a life of miracles and blessings and something really divine, heaven on earth, right? Which is actually we can explain how you can create heaven on earth if people are even open to it. For the most part, we have a lot of our own belief systems that are so strong, they're so rooted that to even open that door to discuss something else means that people have to be willing to fully let go of everything they think they know and be open to a new way of experiencing reality. Now that's a massive jump for most people already, and there's so many walls that just go pa 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 pa, pa. And then it's because what is confronted is the belief structures.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about people go, you got a belief. And it's just like, but if you're open to it, we're dealing with magic, and magic is real.
I was about to go exactly there, which was what are then the containers that you're designing with Rachel and with Soulingua
Okay, thank
to
you very
do that
much.
work. Yeah.
So Soulingua is what we're bringing to Gathering the Tribes, which is awesome. And the gift of Soulingua is really about creating these foundational spaces where we're able to very simply expand, right? And expand from a place of rootedness, combining language, like a rootedness in a universal truth. Again, everything that I'm saying will bring up discussion points. But we want to create a space where everyone can remove as much of their biases as possible. And why that is important is when we're coming from a place of truth, we're fully in service to the other. Because when we are coming from truth, truth is a sharing energy. It's a sharing system. The light, like truth, is source. It's a giving energy. And we want to be a regeneration. The whole concept of regeneration is to share, to create sustainability, like systems that provide the benefit for the collective, the we. It's a we-centric model, right? We want to build a system that's fully focused on how do we support everyone and everything around us, and by doing so, supporting us, because there's a system to it. And we know it. We actually we know it practically because the whole concept of the Gathering Tribes. Like, we can create abundance if we're in service, but there are rules, energetic rules behind this principle that are so profound. They are the foundations of the spiritual systems, right? And actually, when we start to understand the systems of energy that support the structures that we then build that create abundance for everyone, we start applying it to ourselves first, because real change happens with the self. It doesn't happen with the other. We start with changing the way we perceive, the way we experience. We have to shape this.
Yeah.
We're willing to shape this and really come into this work. The only real work, actually, according to the mystical traditions, I don't want to use the word Kabbalist, but I'm going to use the word Kabbalist, or other metaphysical wisdom teachings. The only work, and any spiritual practice will understand this, the only real work is self, right? If we work on the self, really work on it with the right tools, the right consciousness, then we create space and opening for miracles and blessings and abundance. But that's the real work. And unfortunately, without wanting to sound patronizing or myself egotistical, most people don't even know what the real work is, because most people aren't even willing to begin to do it. And what most people are even exploring is not what the real work is, because it's still rooted within a bubble, a bias, a distortion. And that, unfortunately, is the nature of the simulation, right? This great book by Guy Debord, Simulations and Simulacra. I don't know if you read it. It always comes to mind. It's the idea that we live in these kind of echo chambers. And these echo chambers of distortions. Again, it's because everyone's playing the role of something in a particular community, then we believe that that is true. It's not. It's a bubble. We have to break bubbles, really break bubbles. But to do that, we have to break ourselves, which is the work. And actually, that's such a difficult job that we really need a daily support system. And I speak carefully about that, because a lot of my community really work with amazing tools, and they're really doing that work. But for that work to really impact the wider collective, that's what we're here for, right? This is what we're creating. This is what the whole Soulingua Camp's about: bringing together all of these practices, actually creating a space for this dialogue, this discussion to happen with many of these wisdom schools, with many of these practices, to really see how they connect and they fit and they support foundationally new modalities of creating and building new systems, new companies, new cultures, new communities, right? So that's what Soulingua was about, and providing systems.
Thank you. Yeah, I was about to bounce back on how much that's linked with how we talk about culture, not even at the gathering, in the wider regenerative ecosystem, right? I think there is more or less a general agreement now that culture can't be built and culture is emergent. And there is also more or less a general agreement that something isn't quite working right now as per the world, our society, and the way we still behave as individuals. And this work that you just described of doing the weaving, or more accurately, maybe the integration from one to the other, and approaching this integration in a way that we know that we're sowing the seeds of this new culture that we talk so much about, but that we're still clearly very much struggling to grasp as a collective, even within our bubble, right? Of regeneration or of the regenerative ecosystem is really fascinating. Yeah, thank you for that. And I don't know, as you were speaking, what came to my mind was, the words "be the change you want to see in the world" have been repeated for what, 4 or 5 decades, maybe. It's a pretty old one, and it comes from obviously political activism. And I feel like, I don't know, it felt short, I guess, at some point, this mantra, right? And so how can we take this from what you're saying, which is it start with the self, and actually that's all there is, and actually do the work and not just write it at the bottom of our emails. Yeah. Can you?
It's a big topic, right? Like, because
Yeah.
again, we're dealing, unfortunately, and this is something why I want people to come, and we need time, right? Because firstly, people need to trust that I know what I'm talking about. Let's say the Soulingua Camp has some authority on this topic,
Mhm.
right? There's so many people out there promising X, Y, or Z that we can do X. So why this guy? Like, why does he somehow have the answer when everyone else doesn't? And that's a good question. It's a fair point. And I'm just going to put it out there. It's like, um, and I don't have the answer. I know that what the tools are.
Yeah.
I really understand the tools. I'm really committed to tools. And everything that you point to, there's so many layers to all of it. And the foundational thing with whatever we're building has to be consciousness.
Yeah.
Has to be the consciousness we're operating from. And to really understand our own consciousness, our own essence, where we are moving from, what's driving us. What's driving us? Do we even understand the driving forces behind our actions? What are the unconscious? Uh, what are our episodic memories that are creating distortions in our perception of reality that are so rooted through trauma and conditioning, or cultural bias that we can't even see the lenses from which are filtering every single layer of our reality? How do we even catch it? How do we even catch it? Because most of us, we're not even aware. Like, I'm not aware of the additional lenses that are affecting me in this moment. But I do understand enough to know that the more veils I remove, the more layers I remove, the more magic I allow into my life in service of something greater. And it's not limited to a particular community. It's universal, it expands, right? It's so accessible. We want to be accessible. We want to be functional. We want to be able to exist in the world as it is and bring about real change because we're not afraid to interact and deal with the world as it is. We have to deal with the world as it is, but we have to be an agent of change and transformation in ourselves. Otherwise, it's a losing battle, and we have to be able to deal with all of the pushback because you come out with this information to the world. I mean, already gathering the tribes is a hugely progressive conference with amazing people coming together, and still we have so much work to do.
Yeah.
So much work to do. So if we are at the forefront of radical change, what are we coming up against?
Yeah.
What are we coming up against? And how do we steel ourselves? How do we build the muscle, the spiritual muscle to confront that and not be overwhelmed, swamped with the energy that's going to push back, because it pushes back. We're dealing with forces. We're only dealing with forces. And this is also something to even prepare yourself for, because when you do this real work, you're stripping layers. So all of your defenses that were built to protect the self from the world, they're pulled away, and then you're raw and vulnerable and naked and feel. Whoa, you just have to, but that's the beauty of feeling. Building the new muscle is that you come alive to the world. You start to be present with everyone and everything. Well, that's the goal, to feel everything, to be alive with life, moving through you in service of life, in service of the collective, because that's one with life. And that's the goal. We are in that flow. Hopefully I'm giving you space to ask questions, but I think maybe this is just what's coming through in this moment. And
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Thank
I
you.
might,
I
I might
mean, I
but,
know you started this by saying it's all in the self, but when you were talking about, then we know what we come up against, and what we come up within, right? For me, there is really this importance of understanding that, yeah, we're very much part of it also. I don't really believe that we're, completely stepping outside of a system and then looking back at it. There is always this sort of entanglement. Um, but what came to me was also the beauty of the collective in this. So yes, it's inner work and it's about the self, but our ability to be resilient when, as you're saying, when we come out of that cocoon, we have to face reality as it is so much stronger from my personal direct experience and scientific studies. When we know we can rely on this collective, and the collective doesn't need to be uniform, but it needs to have a certain level of coherence, which is really what we're trying to build. And as you were saying, within that coherence, there's those that are more at the forefront in terms of, yeah, wisdom and spirituality, and many other areas, right? And I really love what you guys
totally.
are doing with this. You know what? We will hold this space for the collective, and this is the maybe within the gathering at this event in September, say, as a microcosm, this is the space that will be the most progressive in wisdom and spirituality, which doesn't mean everyone else doesn't hold it, but we're balancing it out, and then it's actually the collective that is also holding you, right, and allowing you to go even further in that space. And there's this, yeah, I just find it very
It's a dance. Well, there's
yeah.
different dimension of seeing, right? Every dimension, let's talk about dimensions, is a structural way of perceiving, right? But if there are, we can call it levels. So every level will have a different vantage point. But every level will be a peak of the mountain, and one peak is the bottom of the next. But it gives enough perspective, and from every level of seeing, we understand the dynamics. This to a place where we realize that it's a fluid system. Everyone's playing their role within something, and everyone's in service of this thing, and this conversation is in service of this 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 new expression. It's all it's all perfectly um it's when we can move in a particular when we can move from a particular space, we realize that we are just playing our role perfectly to be of service to something greater than ourselves. If and and we're just, my desire is to be the an anchor for this. Soulingua is really an anchor for this, and supporting in finding this, right, which just allows the community to root in a deeper understanding of what's possible, because we're creating as you said, this a new framework. But it is an exchange, right? It's also, there's one on one level, it's fluid, but there's also structural systems. Like it's a huge conversation to like discuss, because you can look at it from so many points of view. Like we're so many different characters bring our own unique medicine, let's say.
Yeah, I love that image. And I was about to bounce back at the very start of the conversation where you talked about tools, which I really like. I really see the gathering. So first of all, yes, we don't necessarily pretend to hold the answers, although we do have answers, and that's great. I'm not against answers, but the gathering in its framework is very much focused on questions. And I love this dance that we're all collectively creating between the questions we're holding maybe more with the right hand, and the tools, right? And actually with the questions and the tools, and if we put all of this, and if we see this gathering of people or organizations that are at the forefront of their specific area or sector of expertise, it becomes really powerful, actually. And it means that no one needs to step out of where they need to be. However, everyone can rely on the collective, again, to go even further in their work. And so, yeah, I don't know if there's a question that comes out of that, but maybe. So with Soulingua, what would be your role then, if we say that this is the framework of the gathering, or within the wider regenerative ecosystem? Where do you see yourselves?
So
Yeah, it's enough.
firstly, I want to create, I would say threefold. What comes to mind is that firstly, to bring together many different tools, practices, and teachings. We want to create a space for discussion within the camp of Soulingua. So people with the practice, we're speaking to different teachers, exploring different disciplines. We're looking to see how things connect and fit, how they support one. So that's our own ecosystem internally, and sharing that, learning from each other. Secondly, is offering tools to the other camps. So when we've come together and we've really identified these really kind of brilliant, I'm not saying best in class, but really complementary systems, right? We define complementary systems that really support this inner work. So there's breaking of self and expansion and connection, right? So we break to open space to build this vessel, this container, to receive like light, inspiration, wisdom, clarity, vision. You can call it a divine inspiration, right? We want to receive this from that place. That's a gift, right? So from that, we want everyone to have that divine inspiration, which is going to infuse their gifts of service with a real purity and clarity and intention of sharing something really beautiful. Then we can bring those tools to the collective, and we can hold space. So there's three things: collaborate, share, and hold, expand together, right? And then allow for a new dialogue, a new place of speaking, or new place of seeing, to bring a new perspective to the discussion, and foundations from which everyone can grow, because they're super rooted in something profound, ancient, but present and relatable and accessible.
Thank you. The clarity and the depth. Beautiful. I feel complete, but I want to give you the space to add anything that you wish to.
Plug, join the Soulingua Camp. Join Soulingua Camp, check it in, double Google www. It's terrible plug. www.soulingua. Yeah, terrible plug. That one.
I'll put the
I
link
should
in
have
the
it like
description.
put the link.
Exactly. I'll put the
Click
link.
on the link. Click on the link. Join the camp. See you gathering the tribes. 2024, 11th to 15th of September. Soulingua Camp. Very excited to be there. Come one, come all. Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Nice
super
one.
grateful.